That. Welcome everybody to the Camino Cafe. This month's happy hour speaker is Michelle Lessard, and Michelle has been with us before on a past call where she talked about the tradition of carrying stones. But tonight she is going to talk about something very different that she and I have actually talked a lot personally about, and I won't steal her big show because we'll let her do that. And Michelle, I think, has a slide presentation that she is going to share as well, so maybe she's getting prepared for that. And so if everybody just wants to say unmute and say Bon Camino to Michelle, and then we'll have everybody go back on mute so that when Michelle's speaking, we don't have any background noises or anything. So everyone say hey to Michelle. Bon Camino, Michelle.
Camino.
Oh, hi there, everyone. Oh gosh, thank you, thank you. I am so pleased to be here today and to share this story. Many of us have walked the Camino, so these moments are going to be time for you to reminisce, and some of us have not walked the Camino, so you can hear what it feels like on the final day of your Camino. So I'm just going to read from my blog my final steps. And to allow you to visualize it a bit more, of course, you know me, I've got some slides to add some visuals. So in the meantime, I'm going to turn my video off, and then I'm going to share my screen. And I do want to make sure that everyone can see. Can you see the last steps?
No, not yet.
Okay. Let's see, let's try it one more time. Oh, you've disabled, I'm so sorry, it's disabled by the host.
Okay, what do I got to do?
It must be.
I put you as a host.
Okay.
Okay, try now.
Yeah, I can share now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We should have tested that earlier. Sorry.
I assumed. So can you see my screen? Okay, great. So again, thank you. I'm just going to read my final post. After I go through this, I'm going to talk about a few things that I did after the Camino that I felt was such a perfect ending and kind of put the bow around my entire trip. What I did in Santiago, the few extra days. And then I would love to share with you is some lessons learned. And I would love to hear from many of you some of those lessons that you learned. So that's kind of the agenda that I would love to share. So this is about my last steps, my final moments to Santiago. All right, so here we go. I sit at the side of my bed in my pension, hearing the rustle of other pilgrims preparing for their trek into Santiago. It's my last day of walking. Like every day before, I prep my feet, but this time I pull one last piece of duct tape and finish the roll. Perfection. I'm filled with elation and excitement, but also sadness. I will miss this purpose I have found each day, a purpose to prepare for my walk, to carefully pack my backpack, to psych myself up that 32 kilometers uphill is a piece of cake, a purpose to arrive in a certain town or village, and then search for a place to lay my head and eat a warm meal. There is some comfort in this consistency, but also around every curve, hill, or corner is the unknown. It forces me to trust God and not be fearful. I never knew who would cross my path, if the terrain would be smooth or gnarly, if I missed a yellow arrow and got lost, or if my body would fail me. Never was I fearful. I always knew I would be protected and cared for. I'm meeting Marilee outside a bar across from school that was so alive yesterday afternoon. Now both are closed and tightly shut. As I stand here in the dark morning with only a faint glow of streetlights, I feel peace in the quietness. We begin our walk guided by my headlamp and Marilee's cell phone. I listen to the soundtrack from the movie The Way for the last time on this journey. It's a chilly morning, wet because it rained overnight, but now the weather is calm with a light sprinkle. We have a 70% chance of rain today, so it's probably the calm before the storm. So far, today's walk is peaceful through the beautiful forest and along country roads. I'm certain to stop for breakfast and order my last Spanish tortilla. I savor the taste of the eggs and potato cooked to perfection like only the Spanish can. Later, I catch up with Russ, our lucky leprechaun, and we walk a few final steps together. He stops for a break, and I sense he wants to walk into Santiago alone, so I say goodbye. I knew this wasn't forever, and we would connect again in Santiago. I see the first signs of modern life as I traverse around the Santiago airport. The large roar of the jets shock my body as they take off into flight. Ah, yes, I remember. This happened before when entering big cities like Pamplona, Burgos, and Leon. My senses will take time to adjust from the peaceful and serene Camino to the buzzy crowds and frenzy of the city. Later, in Galician style, sheets of rain begin to fall as I march onward towards Santiago. Marilee and I, heads down, concentrate on walking forward. Without hesitation, we pass an albergue we thought we might stay in. We were too close and could almost touch the finish line, so we carry on and walk all the way to town. I follow the Camino route past winding shops and see the bustle of people out before the noon siesta. As a dutiful pilgrim, I obey my last arrow, Camino sign, shell, that led me over 500 miles to finally see the steps of the Grand Cathedral, the resting place of St. James. No words can explain what I feel at this moment, standing in front of the cathedral, realizing what I've accomplished, and that my journey, it's over, but I'm changed. It will take me some time to fully understand what I just went through and who I have become. Marilee and I pose for pictures. Since Mass had just begun, we take the opportunity and head to the pilgrim office to obtain our Compostela, the certificate of our completed pilgrimage. The official is so warm and kind and congratulates me. He's even excited to see that I left and arrived in exactly 1 month, from October 9th to November 9th. He proudly hands me my Compostela, the modest document written in Latin, including my translated name, that certifies the day I arrived from my pilgrimage. The first pilgrim I run into is Martin from Germany, also known as the foghorn, and our beloved and loudest snorer. I then see many other familiar faces as we greet each other with smiles and hugs and congratulations. The streets are alive, and we all celebrate our friends' accomplishments. It was time to clean up and get refreshed, so I find my hotel and plan to meet Marilee and many other pilgrim friends later in front of the main cathedral in the evening. At 8 p.m., I walk to the main square in search of our Camino group. After I turn the corner of the cathedral, I am in shock to be greeted by about 40 of my Camino brothers and sisters. We hug, celebrate, take pictures in the plaza. Nothing around us mattered. We made it. And this is the first time all of us are together at once. We call the groups bubbles, and each bubble crosses paths with another at one time on the way. And now we've all converged into one big organism. This huge tribe dares not to be separated this evening, and we walk to a local bar, and the celebratory wine begins to flow. There's too many of us, so the party expands to the outside. Again, as a group, we shepherd to a tapas bar like many flock of sheep we passed on the Camino. We enter a restaurant as force and request to dine. I lean over and quietly question one of our Spanish pilgrims if our group is too big. Should we split between restaurants? She replies, "A Spanish party never separates, and they will accommodate us." The staff quickly set up tables for us all. We each contribute 12 euros and let the bar surprise us with tapas and wine. What a party it was. The tables are full of laughter, toasts, stories, all remembering the special times we spent with one another. I lean back, pause for a moment, and gaze at all the faces and smile. This was my family for the month. After dinner and laughing at Professor Shin from Korea dancing Ganga style, we continued to celebrate and walk to a nearby bar. They open the downstairs and the DJ starts up the music and we dance the night away. All generations, all countries we represent speak the same language of dance to the melody. It's now November 10th, and at the stroke of midnight, my pilgrim family all stop and sing happy birthday to me. I'm truly touched. This birthday will always be remembered and hold a special place in my heart. In the early morning hours, 2 of my chivalrous Camino brothers escort me to my hotel and ensure my safe return. It was an extraordinary day, and I was glad to be in my own hotel room, snuggled, not in my sleeping bag, but between the crisp white sheets. The next day, I meet Marilee to attend the Pilgrim Mass and tour the cathedral. I sought out the star, the field of stars, and the famous golden shell, and of course, St. James himself. I then return to my room and enjoy a lazy day of rest. Later, I meet with Russ at the casino bar, and he treats me to a bottle of cava, and we eat ice cream to celebrate my birthday. It was strange to not walk today and have that purpose. I start feeling a shift. Emotions are unsettled, and I need to be alone. So I decide to stay in my hotel room this evening and reflect on what just happened in my life. I even watched the movie The Way again. It never shows the rain, the blisters, or physical pain of the walk, but boy, does it represent some of the characters, friendships, and the changes that take place in their lives. I recognize the scenery and relive many of my Camino moments. They are so fresh in my mind, and I hope I never forget them. I look at a picture of myself from the very first day of the Camino, excited but filled with anxiousness, not knowing what the heck I got myself into and what the journey will provide. I realize I no longer live a purpose to walk, eat, sleep, repeat. I have a greater calling, and one that searches for amazing opportunities each day always provides. My priorities have shifted, my mind is clear, and my heart is filled with love. Now I understand the perfect community I belong to, be it either with friends or family, with a person I love, or with myself and my God. I sit here with no fear, just peace. I now understand the joyfulness of life in its simplicity of giving, receiving, and being love. The Camino, it's magical, it's hardship, it's friendship, it's clarity, but most importantly, the Camino is love. So that was my final steps in my final day I wanted to share with all of you. So then what I thought I would talk about is what I did after the Camino that helped me kind of transition back into the real world, as a lot of people talk about. But also it helped me kind of decompress. As you saw, I finished the Camino in literally 30 days rather than 33 because I was following the John Brearley book. So I had accelerated pretty much the second half of the Camino as my body was strong. So I had extra days, but I also had buffered of a little bit of extra days at the end because I did not want to have that pressure in case I had any injuries. So I just knew at a certain point I needed to be in Barcelona for my return flight to the US. That was all I knew. Had no flight from Santiago, had no idea how to get to Barcelona, but I knew whatever time I had between there was mine. So a few things that I did after the Camino that I would strongly recommend if you haven't, and I would love to hear what you have done, but if you haven't before or you're planning your Camino, this is something just to kind of consider to add a bit of time at the end of the Camino. So one thing that I really enjoyed is because I was there for a few extra days, I got to sit over by the pilgrim office, which by the way, in those days, it was really close to the fountain. Now it's further down, but I got to sit there. I went over by the fountain. I would just greet people left and right. I had lunches, I had dinners, I had happy hours. I just was able to see people, and these were all the people that I had seen during my Camino, and not one of these people did I walk into Santiago with. The very first two girls in the upper right corner, they're Canadian gals. I literally met them my rest day in Santiago. In the upper left corner, the two gentlemen were my bunkmates in Roncesvalles. And then Angela in the lower right, I met in Roncesvalles at dinner the very first night. We spent a lot of the Camino together. And then of course in the lower left corner, it's our French friend and Russ the Lucky Leprechaun, and also Ken, our friend from Germany. But these were some of those bonds that I just made throughout the trip. And even though we may not have walked in at the same time, we were all around to just spend some really good time together. These are a bunch of Canadian ladies that I really got to know, and we would see each other here and there as well. So we also did a girls happy hour. Another thing that I did is I toured toured the cathedral, and I went to the museum and I bought the museum package as well as the cathedral tour. So it's spectacular. If you ever have gone into that museum, and if you have not, please do. It's just spectacular. So I toured all around. I won't show you all my pictures and my artifacts, but this is just one of the hundreds that I took. In addition, I took a tour. And what's really cool about the tours, you get to go to other parts of the church that you normally wouldn't go. So you really get to see and explore the parts of the cathedral, and it's massive, not just the main area. In addition, and this is for those who in addition, you also get to be up close. And I think if you go into the cathedral, you can see the famous Pillar and Rock, and they showed this in the way. But you actually get to tour the roof. We climb some stairs, we go up. If you have vertigo, you may not want to do this. The tour guide's on the right, and all of us were up there. You're walking all over that roof. It's just cool because the view from up there is so amazing. You can see down into the cathedral. So there's the fountain on the right. You get to see down, you get to see Santiago. It was spectacular, but definitely if you're afraid of heights, do not go up there. But it was so worth the money that I spent with both of those packages that I went through. Lastly, the other thing that I did is I bused to Finisterre. And there I got to greet more pilgrims. So this is Juan. I met him my second day. I met, actually in Roncesvalles, and I walked with him on and off throughout the Camino. He had decided to walk all the way to Finisterre, happened to be there having lunch, and there he arrived. So we took a quick picture. He was such a gem. He actually created a fantastic video that I have posted before on my Camino site. I will make sure to post again. So I got to see Juan, and he was so thrilled to see me. I was the first face he got to see that was familiar. Out there in Finisterre, you get to see the final Camino statue. You get to see the lighthouse, the zero marker, and of course the famous boot. I sat here. Unfortunately, you're going to see a lot of pilgrims burn things here. I would never recommend that. What I did is I took my sock liners and I actually threw them in the garbage here. Please don't burn things, but you get to basically sit and gaze, and there's a panorama view so you can kind of see, but you just get to sit and gaze out to the end of the world. I sat here for, I can't tell you how long, and just meditated and just decompressed. It was probably one of the most spectacular moments of my life, was sitting here in Finisterre at the end of the world. So those were a couple things that I wanted to share and that of afterwards. So I'm going to pause right now and just see if there's any other questions or comments about any of that, or what you all have done in the past.
Wow, Michelle, I just first want to say thank you. You made me tear up several times. Those photos and feeling that feeling of the arrival in Santiago, and wow, you just captured it. I'm teary-eyed. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope it brings memories of yours. I was so fortunate to be in such a connected group of literally 40. That was just the 40. There was more of us. We were so connected. And then to arrive on the eve of my birthday and then celebrate my birthday. It was my 49th birthday with all of them. That was just a fantastic time. They were family, and it was so fun to be loved by them. And the lesson I learned on the Camino was to receive love.
Mm. I feel like you had mentioned at one time, did you guys have a reunion on another day?
Yeah, and I will show that to you. Hang on real quick.
Okay.
Make sure you can see. So that group of 40, of course, not everyone is fully connected, although I would say a good portion of them I'm still on Facebook with. But there was the gentleman from Germany who I showed you, who's in the lower left corner of one of those pictures, named Ken. He just loved the Camino so much, and so he arranged a reunion exactly the same days 1 year later. And most everyone was from Europe, and so they decided to meet in Paris. I was the one coming from the longest distance. Of course, I'm coming from Scottsdale, Arizona to Paris for a long weekend, but they all trained in, but that was fine. I have miles, so I was able to do it. And by the way, that would have been my 50th birthday. So I thought, what else to spend my 50th birthday with some of the same people and spend it in Paris. I have spent a lot of time in Paris. I used to live in the UK and did a lot of business here, and it's one of my favorite cities. So we just toured, and one of the gals is actually a Parisian, and so she's the one that kind of toured us all around. So this is going towards some of the cathedral. We literally found a yellow a yellow arrow. We couldn't believe it, so we had to take a picture. This is one part near the river, and it's a whole map. So they all stood on their countries, and of course I was off in my own country, but they were all, so there was 9 of us, and our ages ranged from Renier, he is Germany, the tallest one. He's literally, well, he was 19 at that point. He was 18. He was the youngest pilgrim that we all walked with. He also walked barefoot a lot, which I thought was crazy, but and then I was grandma. I was the oldest, so so this is them all kind of stepping on their countries. There's us in front of Notre Dame, and so we went inside and we toured a bit, and we spent some good times there. Our friend who lived there, her parents have a flat not too far from Notre Dame, and so they gave us their flat for the evening. So we all went to a fantastic market, the marché, and we literally bought all the fixings for a big pilgrim meal. We all cooked together. We made this pilgrim meal together, and then we literally just sang and played music until the wee hours of the night, probably until about 5 or 6 in the morning. And this is us just having a fantastic, fantastic evening as a reunion. Everyone left at certain points the next day. I stayed another day and celebrated my 50th with a beautiful filet mignon under the Eiffel Tower. So that was one of the most fabulous things I think we did as well. And I would really encourage, if you can get something like that arranged, to definitely do.
Thank you for sharing those. Michelle, those pictures are great too. Does anyone else want to unmute? Let's just all unmute. And if you have questions for Michelle or comments or a similar story you want to share.
Well, we would agree, spend some extra days in Santiago. We very much agree. Now, we've been there 4 times, and I think we discovered we like to stay 3 or 4 days, because you're going to see people that you've walked with who are coming in a little later, or some who were early, and you have a chance to meet up with them. So yeah, too many people that we met had already been kind of had their arrangements booked already, so they had to leave way too soon. And so if you can arrange that extra buffer time before you go, highly recommend that.
It's such a beautiful city too, and I actually wish I would have toured it a bit more, gone to the big park. It's some great shopping. It's a great shopping town, so I enjoyed that. I bought some things there. You know, it's really a beautiful town to just tour around as well.
I went back at Christmas time last year, and it was beautiful at Christmas. The lights and all of the nativity scenes at the churches and the market. It was just so much fun.
Thank you for mentioning about the tour. That sounded spectacular.
Yeah.
So I had been invited by friends that it's a couple in Salt Lake City, and her sister is married to a Spaniard in Burgos. So I was kind of the add-on. So I was thrilled to be able to go, and I felt like they had all taken care of me. So we came into, those of us who biked came into Santiago, and then I had gotten us all rooms at the Parador there. And so not our first night in Santiago, but the next night when, as a matter of fact, Deborah, who's married to the Spaniard, and her husband came, we all stayed at the Parador. And if you can splurge, it was spectacular. And it was my way of thanking them, because I could have, I couldn't have walked this. And I think I could have walked, I mean, if you could walk, I think there's fine being alone, but I don't know that biking would have been, it would have been very hard, I think, to do alone. And I'm impressed that you guys are up all night. I mean, I was in my room unwinding at 8 o'clock. And that was my only sadness, that I didn't connect with quite as many other pilgrims, because I was, you know, we'd get in late. You'd be doing your laundry, hanging it up, getting yourself a meal, and then trying to figure out where you're going to stay the next night. And then I would be like, oh my God, I've got to go to sleep. So some of you are quite a bit younger. I can see the energy and I love it.
Well, and I have shared this with some people. There, about every 3 or 4 days, I did not stay in the albergues, because I am such a light sleeper, and even with earplugs, it just wouldn't work. Plus the Spanish, for some reason, like to keep all the windows closed, and I was suffocating. So, knowing that I was spending some time outside and away from the group, I made sure during the mornings and during the days, as well as the dinners, to connect with people. That was how I was able to build those relationships, even though sometimes in the evenings I'd pop away and have my own refuge. So that was something I did. And it was for my health, it was for my sanity. I found if I had a better night's sleep, my body could regenerate better, and it is incredible what our bodies can do. I too, Margie, thought I wasn't going to be able to do it with my knees. I have really bad knees. And shockingly enough, they did not cause me a single problem, because I use poles. The hiking poles were a savior for me.
So Michelle, you've mentioned that you want to do the Norte next.
Yes.
I wondered if maybe you would start us off. I would like to ask the whole group, what about the Camino do you think draws people back for, well, for the first time, and then a second, and then a third, and as many as we can? So I'm just curious, I'm starting with you, like, what do you think drew you there originally, and what draws you to go back again? And I'm writing an article about this, by the way. So if I use your quote, I will follow up with you to make sure it's okay to use your quotes. I am fascinated by this topic right now. So Michelle, if you would lead us off, why the Norte next, and what's drawing you originally and what's drawing you back?
Well, what drew me originally, I am a person who's very much a hiker and an outdoor person, but I heard about the Camino because I lived in the UK in 1998, and I did a lot of business in Porto, and I did a lot of business in Spain, in Barcelona, and things like that. And I just heard about it. It was always on my list, and I just knew that was an adventure that I wanted to be a part of. Also the Appalachian Trail, now the Pacific Coast Trail, those are trails that have always been kind of like, those would be interesting, but I didn't want to have to carry a tent. So when I learned more about the Camino, this is, before the year 2000, I'm like, wow, this is something that I would really love to do. And so then it happened. It eventually happened in the spur of the moment in 3 days. It was just an opening in my life, and so I went. But it was basically the Camino gravity just thrusted me forward. So that drew me. I'm a seeker. I'm a person who really loves to better myself and grow and heal. And so I knew that the Camino was that way of doing that. It allows you to kind of get outside of yourself and get out of your own way and really learn to seek and find clarity and healing. Mm-hmm. Those were things that were important to me. And so I think that I knew all that was part of it. And so that's what threw me in the clutches of the Camino on the French way. Then, of course, after you walk it, the first thing you want to do is walk away for a while. Because I'll tell you, by end of week 3, I was done. That repetition and repacking and, I'm like, okay, I'm done, but I'm going to keep going because there's more lessons and I am going to walk every step. But there was a point where you kind of get tired. And however, then the change that I saw in myself and how my life has evolved and how I learned, some 2 important things that I learned was confidence and resilience. I just became so much more confident, and I'm an international traveler and I travel all over. So it was more confidence in my own skin, I think, that the Camino gave me. And it showed me how much I really do love to be around people and to receive love and to give love. And then it really showed me how resilient I am. I've gone through some really tough things in the last couple of years, and boy, this Camino, if I can do that, I can go through anything and some of the ups and downs of the Camino. And it just showed me how resilient I am. And I know that back to me being a seeker, there's always more to learn. And I think that's why I want to walk again and again and again, like many of you. And because there's just more to learn, there's more people to meet, there's more angels to discover, as we all discover the angels on the Camino. And I love travel, and I like the travel at 2 to 3 miles an hour rather than the travel in a bus. And so it just is my style.
So relatable. Love it. Anyone else want to offer what first drew you and what's drawing you now, or if you've gone multiple times or want to go again, why you would want to do that?
We're drawn by the movie first.
The Way?
We hadn't heard of, The Way, we hadn't heard about it before. And we've gone back. I know for me, it's just such a perfect spiritual, physical, emotional journey all wrapped up in one. And I think you just feel so alive when you're on the Camino too. And you live in the moment. And there's not that many, oh, it's hard to do that, but you live in the moment when you're on the Camino. Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity to be stretched in every way. And I'm drawn to the simplicity. All you do every day is walk. And you're not solving any other, your biggest, am I going to have a chocolate croissant along with my coffee con leche, or, you know, what am I going to have? And where might I stop? That's your biggest worry, maybe. But you're not solving any other issues. So it's simplicity, but also being stretched at the same time. And you see a ton of very sacred places. A lot of sacred places along the way. A lot of places of great significance. And yeah.
Wow, hearing these, it just makes me want to get back there. Anyone else want to add?
So I think I had also had the opportunity of taking a class about the Camino in something called Osher in Salt Lake City. So it's for people over 55. And there was a group that was going to be doing the Camino. I think they were just going to do bits and pieces of it. But it gave us a history that he went through sections and said, these are the things you should see. And he had pictures and would give you the history and kind of tie in all of Europe. It was fabulous. And so I was just so impressed by the history before I went and the opportunity to do this. And then I guess I was blown over by the hospitality and the kindness along the way. I mean, we'd pull into a bar pretty early in the morning, really just to get a cup of coffee maybe and to use the bathroom. And they were always so kind. If they were out of toilet paper, they would be running in with a roll of toilet paper. And I thought, you know, I'm only buying a cup of coffee and they must have hundreds of people that come through here. And they were just wonderful about it, you know. And then just the idea of getting on your bike every day and doing history and enjoying nature and stopping where you want to. And then my plan, and again, I went during the longest days of the year because again, I didn't want to be hurrying. I wanted to be able to take my time and still have daylight. And then in 2020, the goal was to do the John Muir Way, which is across Scotland. And I think people do hike that one as well. And so a friend that I had met on another bike trip and had only spent, I think, 7 days with her on an organized bike trip. She's Canadian. And so the two of us got together and we're going to meet in Scotland, even though we had never traveled together, and go across and do the John Muir Way, which is obviously on hold. We thought it might be a year, but I have a feeling it's going to be 2 years before we're going to be comfortable doing that. But I think just the beauty, the history, the excitement of planning, and then, you know, dealing with the weather and whatever else comes up.
Beautiful. Margie, you said you went to a class in Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
Where was the class held?
So it's through the University of Utah. It's called Osher, O-S-H-E-R. And Osher is for people 55 and older. I think other cities have it.
Yeah.
And so at the time I took the classes, all of them were on campus, and they're 3 or 4 times a year, and there's usually maybe 50 of them, maybe 30, maybe I'm exaggerating. But now, for instance, I'm taking 2 on Zoom. One is of the Women of the Supreme Court, and the other one is on Lakota Sioux history of the United States. So anyways, they do things, and the people that teach are people that oftentimes are professors, usually older people as well, and they're fabulous.
Oh, wow, that sounds really cool. I wonder when you said that, because I know that Robert teaches classes at REI about the Camino. And so I wondered if it was that. Wow, how
We-
cool.
No, so it was,
Camino 101, and we do it pre-COVID. We did it once a month, and we'd get a lot of people. We'd get 10 to 20 people each time. They'd one of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, I
in
know.
person, or was it on like a call?
No, it was in person. It was in a meeting room at an REI store in Austin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know if they used to do that here in Salt Lake. I'm guessing maybe they do it across the country. Because Michelle, you went to REI when you were training, right? Or getting ready to go, I mean.
Well, yeah, I went to REI just because I had 3 days to have to buy everything. But then ironically, there was my first Angel. I'm trying to figure out a backpack. Never had one ever, except for a day pack. And this guy's trying to help me. He's like, well, what are you going to hike? And I told him, he goes, wait a minute. And he runs away. And then some lady comes. He took her place on the cashier. She walked the Camino. She was about to walk it again. And she was the head of the Camino group in Phoenix. And she puts on the Camino seminars in REI. And that ended up being my very first Angel. And so she helped me. But yeah, they do the REI ones, but I've seen them. We haven't had them in a while, but I never attended those. But the gal who puts them on was definitely my first Angel.
Hmm. Okay, Robert or Corey, do you want to talk about the draw or say anything else before we end the call? Because we're at 7 o'clock, so we'll just go maybe another 5 minutes. So Robert and Corey, you got the floor, either one of you.
I don't feel like I have a desire to go back to the Camino. I feel like I never left, and I'm temporarily living in here. That's the honest.
Robert, it's beautiful.
So good.
6 trips a year was my plan, and I am not wealthy, and I really don't have that much money. But I've learned how cheaply you can travel in Europe, and I really didn't know you could do that. When I first booked a flight to France to walk the Camino, you know, the booking app shows you all these hotel rooms where you're going. They're $150 a night, $200 a night. I thought, man, this is going to be a short trip. Then I found out that there's really a whole nother system. And so I backpacked for a long time. I've done at least 25 week-long backpacking trips in the Rockies, mostly in Wyoming. And I loved that. But you kind of time out on that, you know. I hadn't been in 5 or 6 years when I went to the Camino. But now, you know, carrying a 16-pound pack and having, instead of 40 pounds, and having a bed and a meal and a glass of wine every day and a shower, you know, that's the new adventure. I'm 68. I'll be 69 when I hope to turn 69 on the Via. I turned 65 and 66 on Camino trails. I missed 67 by 2 weeks and couldn't go this year.
Oh, I did my first Camino at the age of 66, and I've done 4, so it's never too late, eh?
Right, yeah. One of my friends from here, I kind of coached her. She's 81. She walked 2 weeks of the Camino. I've talked to her about going back and finishing it. She really wants to. If it opens up next year, kind of be surprised if she doesn't at 83 go back to finish walking the Camino.
How old is she, Robert?
She's 82 now.
She seems so young. She was on one of the past Austin calls I was on with you. What a great spirit she has.
Yeah.
I hope she gets to do that.
Yeah.
Robert, I'm mesmerized by your background. Do you have some Camino stuff back there?
No, I'm at my friend Kathy's house. It's not my house. We're watching Endeavor. We're on an Endeavor watching binge.
Oh, okay. All right. Did you want to add anything else to that, Robert, before we give Corey a chance?
And next time we can talk about, I can explain the differences, because every Camino has a different vibe, and they kind of all have different ways of being. And you know, Italy and France and Spain are as different as night and day on the trail. So we can talk about what those are about, and how the system works.
Beautiful.
They're different.
All right. And so we'll be on that call with Robert. That'll be the second Monday of November. How is that happening? Hopefully it's one more month closer to our next Caminos. Thank you, Robert. And Corey, did you want to add anything before we close out?
Sure, just really quickly, even though I haven't walked, the Camino feels like it's in me soul deep. And growing up being a nature loving kid and having my parents take me camping for months at a time. And also like Robert, I've done so many backpacking trips, I can't even count them. And it just is so in me to walk, and just the steps and the way that it makes you feel and the connection you have to the earth and those that you come in contact with. I think that's why that is always, the Camino has always spoken to me just on a cell level. Like I feel like that place is in me, and I can't wait to step foot there. So listening to everyone just makes me so happy. It makes me emotional because I can relate to you and feel it. So thank you.
I feel like we just had a wonderful Camino dinner together. And wow, Michelle, thank you for leading us into some really great conversation and sharing your trip.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
It's beautiful. I'm so looking forward to next month. Please feel free to invite friends. Hope that you'll, if you have interest in reading with us, don't forget to get your book. And again, this is a no pressure kind of thing. It's just a way for us to stay connected to the Camino and one another and keep building onto our pilgrim family. So thank you all for being here tonight. If you have any comments, questions, whatever, feel free to message me on Facebook or whatever. And thank you. Let's all say Bon Camino to each other. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.